Okay, so today what I'm going to talk about is how as a wedding filmmaker to successfully make the transition from part-time to full-time. Now, starting a business and going full-time is a bit like climbing Mount Everest. Climbing Mount Everest is freaking hard. Like, you're not going to just go climb Mount Everest without a plan. You're not going to go without someone who's done it before. Now, I see so many wedding filmmakers say, I'm just going to go full time without any guidelines, without any plan, and they just fall flat on their face. So what I'm going to cover is some guidelines that I've put in place to make sure that that does not happen to you. Now, a lot of these are rules that I think you should follow. Now, again, you can completely disregard these and go out on your own. And I know people who have without doing any of these things, and they are really successful. But I would say those people are more the exception rather than the rule. So let's get into it. So the first thing is an emergency fund. You want to have 6 months to a year saved in an emergency fund before you start your wedding business full time. Now, why 6 months to a year? Because that's just enough to be able, if something happens where you don't have bookings for a few months, which will happen, you can pull from those reserves. Now, this is what I would suggest you do to come up with how much that should be. I want you right now to pause the video, or maybe even make a note to yourself to do after this video, and write down all your base expenses. Like, these are the expenses that if they weren't met, you would be homeless. So, money for groceries and money for rent and all those crazy important things, and then get that number and then multiply that by 6. And then what I want you to do, what we have done, is we have a whole separate bank account for our emergency fund, because it is so tempting to be like, ooh, new drone. Yes, aerial footage, 4K, raw, sounds like an emergency to me. Boom, empty that emergency account. No. We are more civilized than that. We can do this, guys. Exercise restraint. We got this. Separate bank account, okay? 2 banks that I really recommend are Ally Bank and Synchrony Bank. They're fantastic, super easy to open up, and they make it a little difficult, especially Synchrony Bank. I know that's the bank that I have my emergency fund in, and in order for me to get that money, I have to call the bank on the phone and say, hey, this is the amount of money that I need, and they'll send me a check. Yes, a check. And I don't have a debit card linked to that account, anything like that. There's no electronic transfer that I can just get the money quickly. I can get it in about 1 to 2 days, but it's not so liquid that I can buy, that new red camera. Separate bank account, emergency fund, and if COVID has shown us anything, it is more important than ever to have that emergency fund. Without the emergency fund, I don't know how our company would have made it through COVID. It was literally what saved us, and God, of course. I mean, he really was the one who saved us. But just him giving us that wisdom to have that emergency fund was insanely amazing. So, emergency fund. Next, you want to be booking 50% to 80% of your target couple before you transition to full-time. And you might be saying, David, what? That's impossible. Hear me out. If you're not booking between 50 to 80% of your target couple, that means something's broken. Something has gone wrong. The engine that should be driving your business, there's things not working. You need to take it to a mechanic. You need to figure out, why aren't I booking 50 to 80% of my target bride? Is my branding off? Is my work off? Is my sales process off? Because I can guarantee that you're not going to fix a problem with a problem. You can't be like, but David, when I have more time and when I have, when I go full time, it'll just magically fix. It's a bit like when couples get married, and before they're getting married, they're like, oh man, I know our relationship has problems. I know we fight all the time, but just once we get married, once we sign, on the dotted line, somehow the institution of marriage is just going to magically make our troubled relationship better. No, it doesn't work like that. Same with your business. Don't fix a problem with a problem. Make sure that you have 50 to 80% of your target bride. And don't settle. Don't settle for, brides that aren't your target couple, because you don't need to. More than likely, if this wedding business, you're doing it part-time, you probably have another full-time job that you can, lean on to where you don't need to take every wedding. And I know it's tempting to say, but David, I need the experience. I just want to shoot a ton of weddings. I kind of get that. But why not get the experience with your target couple? Weddings you're going to be more excited about, weddings that are going to be quicker to edit because you're more excited about them, weddings that you're going to be able to share more because you're more excited about them, and it's just going to funnel. You're going to be able to move faster because all that you're pumping out as a company is target bride content. And so what are you going to get? Quicker, more target brides. So don't settle. And be willing to say no. Like if you have a couple who's not a good fit, refer them to another company that is a good fit. So for example, I've realized that I am not good at shooting indoor Catholic ceremonies. I'm just not built for it. I don't have the right gear for it. So if a couple comes to me and that's specifically what they're doing, I can in confidence say, you know what, I don't think we're a good fit. You should reach out to this other company who I have a great relationship with, who I really trust, who do such a better job at your wedding. And I'm still serving them, but I'm also leaving that spot open for a couple who I think I could serve better. Because when you are part-time in this, you want to leave all your time, all your resources for couples that you can serve in the best possible way possible. Best possible way possible. That's a lot of possibles. Anyways, and also, you build amazing relationships with videographers in your area who are stoked that you're referring couples to them. And then, when they get a couple that might not be a good fit for their vibe and their brand, but it's a good fit for yours, they will refer couples to you. And building that network of referrals with other vendors and videographers in your area is huge. Okay, next, you want to be booking 7 to 10 weddings a year. Why 7 to 10? So I think that's the good amount to where anything more than 10, I'd say 12 is kind of like the cap you want to hit. Anything more than that, you're not going to be able to balance your full-time job and your part-time wedding business successfutely, unless you're a freak of nature, which more power to you. But it seems to me that past that 12 mark, you start to really be butting heads with your time. You don't have enough time for your family or fun or relationships or your other job, full-time job. And it just gets really, really chaotic and you start burning the candle at both ends. And when that happens, you start to get antsy. You start to feel like, I just need to go to full-time right now because I'm panicking. And it's never a good idea to make a lifelong, life-altering decision to go into full-time entrepreneurship when you're panicking. And if you're shooting less than 7 weddings a year, you're probably not ready to go full-time either, because it's telling you, there's something off to where if I can't get around 7 bookings, I need to, keep trying to hit that number. And when you're shooting those 7 to 10 weddings, you want to make sure that the package you're booking the most of is a 3 to 5 minute highlight film. Okay, I wouldn't suggest you booking a ton of 9 to 12 minute films or doc edits or crazy full ceremony and toast while you're in this part-time season, because it's just gonna grow to this beast that it's gonna be really hard to manage. Put your time into those 3 to 5 minute edits, make that your most booked package, because it's gonna allow you to have fun, be really creative, and pump out really awesome content that you are excited about. Okay, next, you wanna be charging between $3,000 to $5,000 per wedding before you go full-time. Now I know you're probably like, what? David, I'm charging $1,000 and you don't even know how hard I fought to charge $1,000 or $1,200. I can't possibly think about charging $3,000, yet alone $5,000. If I wait till I do that, I'm never gonna go full-time. Totally a valid response. Like, that's human. If you've been struggling to hit that number, you're just like, I can't fathom waiting longer. That seems impossible. But let me tell you, going full-time is not gonna fix your money issue. It just won't. If you're not able to charge $3,000 at least 90% of the time for your wedding films, something is wrong. Something is broken. Your branding is not working. Maybe your films just aren't quite solving a pain point for your target audience. Maybe you haven't formed great relationships with other vendors. Just don't make the jump. make sure that you're consistently hitting those numbers. And I know it can be hard to hear, but it's so worth it. And 3,000 to 5,000, I've talked to so many wedding filmmakers, and that's the range to where in most states, most countries, if you're shooting, consistent weddings, you can actually make a living from weddings in that price range. It's not going to be a fantastic living, but you're not going to be homeless. And I've been doing this a long time. I've spoken at a lot of workshops. I've done a lot of mentorships. I've talked to a ton of wedding filmmakers. And almost always, the ones that are struggling the most are the ones that jumped ship to full-time and they're charging under $3,000. They put themselves in a cycle that they cannot break out of, and more often than not, they get burnt out because that's not enough money to do anything really with, and their business fails. And I don't want to see that happen to you, because we need more amazing wedding filmmakers. And I think one of the reasons we don't see many is due to lack of business knowledge and lack of patience and lack of wisdom on when to do certain things. So that's what I'm trying to help you guys with. And another point I want to make. So a lot of people get antsy to go full-time into wedding filmmaking because they hate their job. Now, this is totally valid. If I hated my job and my boss was just belittling me and made me feel less than human, and my coworkers were literally like just nails on a chalkboard, which is true for a lot of people. We live in a really broken world. People are very selfish, and companies just don't work how they should, and it really wears down on your soul. So if that's you, I get it. I get it. And I'd venture to say that most people are in some environment with their job that they really don't like. And the temptation could be, well, let me just start my own business so I can escape this horrible environment. But I can tell you that you're not going to escape a soul-crushing existence from moving to another potential soul-crushing existence. Because I will tell you, what is more soul-crushing than a job that you hate is going into a business and then immediately being just bombarded with your inability to pay rent, inability to charge what you need to charge for your weddings, be inundated with wedding edits that you just can't get to, be strapped with so many edits that you can't even think about raising your prices, and you're being crushed day in and day out by a business that didn't yet have the foundation to succeed. You don't want to be there. And then if that happens, more than likely your business will fail, and then you're going to have to get another job that you hate just to pay the bills. And then on top of all the stress that was induced by the business, now you feel like a failure on top of that because the business failed. And more than likely, because you feel like a failure, you're going to take any job that comes your way because you're just like, I'm a failure. And just you're going to breed all that negativity in your heart, and you're not going to be in a good place. So if you are at a job that you don't like, the answer isn't to jump into full-time business if you're not ready. What you need to do is go get another job that you can be like, okay, this is maybe not my dream job, but I can make do. And I know I say that so nonchalantly, like just go get another job. I would start looking for another job. That will buy you more time to really make sure you establish the foundation of this wedding business properly. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do is you want to have 1 to 2 years of consistency under your business's belt before you make the jump to full-time. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that you should have at least a year or so of consistency in terms of charging $3,000 to $5,000 per wedding, 7 to 10 bookings per year, and you should have 50 to 80% of your target bride. Because you want to be able to look back on your last year or two and say, you know what, my success wasn't just a fluke. If I go full-time, I think I can do this because my system works. Huge, because I study a lot of businesses, and one of the common things I see are businesses that grow too fast. They have a super profitable, maybe 4 or 5 months, like insanely profitable. And they're like, what? This is amazing. And they start hiring tons of employees. They start buying up other buildings to expand their business. They start buying all this infrastructure. And then that 5th month of business, all their profitability upside down, just 180 degrees upside down. And they have all these obligations because they thought their business was going to continue in that upward slope for 12 plus years for the rest of their lives. And now they don't know what to do. And then the business tanks, it goes under because they scaled too fast. You don't want your embarking for full-time to be built on a fluke. You don't want it to be built on 4 months of like, I've gotten $5,000 bookings every month for the past 3 months. You want to see that play out for at least a year to see, hey, is this something that I want to do, that I can consistently say, hey, it works. Okay, so the next thing that you want to have in place is a plan to tackle debt. Now, I'm a huge advocate of going into business with zero debt, but I know that's not realistic for a lot of people if you have a big amount of student debt. So what I would say, if you don't go into your business with no debt, at least go in with a plan to get rid of that debt as soon as physically possible, preferably in 1 to 2 years of your business. Because debt is a little bit like a hole in a ship, and you're on that ship and you're like, my plan is to sail to that island. You get on the ship, it has the hole, you know it has the hole, but you're like, I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm gonna kind of like put Bounty toilet paper over the hole. It kind of stops it just a little bit, but it's more important that we get to the island. That's my goal. So you start really fast out the gate, out the dock, and you're making great time. There's actually other ships around you that you're beating because you didn't take time to fix things up. Maybe those other ships stayed in the dock longer because they really made sure that their ship was ready to sail beforehand. But you're going. And you could see the island. You're closer than you've ever been. But then that tiny hole in the boat turns into a bigger hole and a bigger hole. And before you know it, you can see the island. You're so close, but your whole ship gets engulfed in water and you and your seamates die. And all those other ships that took the time to really assess their ships before taking off, they made it to the island and you're just underwater with a failed boat. That's what debt does. It's so encumbering. You wouldn't climb Mount Everest if you had a debilitating spine injury or you had an amputated leg or something like that. You really want to be able to make the climb because business is the hardest thing you'll ever do, most rewarding, but hardest thing you'll ever do. And you need to make sure your ship, which is you, your finances are ready to really climb that Mount Everest. So make sure that you have either no debt or a plan to tackle it because nothing will tank a business faster than a debt hole in your ship just leaking out money. So if you look at your finances and you're like, most of my money every month is going towards paying off my debt, that should be a good sign to you to say, I don't know if I'm quite ready to make that jump now to full-time. So get that debt under control. Okay, so the next thing is you want to have your gear foundation complete. What do I mean by that? You want to have your computer, your necessary lenses, your camera, your drones, your gimbals, all those really big purchases you want to have made before you go into full-time. Now, it doesn't all have to be made, but I'd encourage you to have at least 80%, if not 100% of those things taken care of, because there's nothing worse than going full-time and being like, this is gonna be the year of prosperity and success, and realizing, oh shoot, I need to spend $30,000 in design, in computer, in all this camera stuff. And then your first year of business, instead of being exciting and profitable, it's scary and not profitable and you're barely making it. I say this from experience because what I did is I just went full on into it, and that first year, almost 80% of our gross went into gear and we could barely make rent and pay for food and things like that, and it was really, really difficult. Don't be there. Use this time where you have another full-time job and all the money that you make from these weddings that you're booking, funnel it directly back into your business. I want all the money that you're making, I want you to pay for your cameras. I want you to pay for your tripods, your audio equipment. I want you to pay for branding. I want you to get some amazing solid courses that are going to give you the foundation so that when you go full-time, you have all these systems in place. Invest in education. That way, when you take off, you're not going to have all this stuff that you have to pay. You could just bask in the profits. Okay, the last thing is you want to have a reliable sales process. Now, what do I mean by a reliable sales process? I mean that you need to have a system for how you handle every single lead, all the way to final delivery of the film. Do you do a phone call with that lead? Do you send pricing for that lead? How do you handle payments? How do you handle contracts? How do you handle Skype meetings before the wedding? How do you handle how fast you deliver a wedding film? How do you deliver that wedding film? Now, I know that could seem kind of overwhelming, but trust me, it's way more overwhelming trying to figure that out when you're just going to full-time. You want to have those processes complete and ready to go. So what I'd encourage you to do is on a piece of paper, if you still use paper in 2021, but maybe on a note on your computer, write down every step that you could fathom a bride would go through in terms of a process for your company. So lead comes in, what do you do on that lead? What do you do with sales calls? Do you do them? Do you not do them? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And write it all out and have a template for how you handle every situation. So that way, when you go full-time and you start to get a bunch of leads and a bunch of bookings, you don't crumble with a lack of a system and everything everywhere. Again, I'm speaking from experience. I went full-time without a system, and I specifically remember the first year of business, I had to find a contract, and I didn't have any system for storing those contracts. And I remember being in my apartment with printed contracts all over my living room floor, mixed with tax receipts, mixed with user manuals for electronics I had bought, mixed with just random odds and ends, trying to look for this couple's contract. And it was so stressful because I was like, if I can't find this contract, there's going to be some really big issues with this couple. And I would have saved myself all that headache if I had a reliable system in place for handling every step of the pre-booking to booking process with a couple before I went full-time. Okay, so those are the guidelines that I massively recommend as you consider going from part-time to full-time as a wedding filmmaker. So you kind of have 1 to 2 options, and I'm gonna kind of lay them out for you. One option, you disregard everything I said and say, David, I'm a special, fantastic, amazing snowflake. And you don't understand me. I got this. And you go off. You could win. And I'm like, dude, girl, power to you. You got this. Hey, you should be doing a YouTube video. That would be amazing. Although more than likely what will happen is you're gonna flounder for 3 to 4 years. You're gonna take a lot of weddings that you're not passionate about because you need the money, and you're just gonna be in this cycle of taking weddings you're not passionate about, being stuck editing those weddings, being burnt out, surviving, barely able to make it month after month. And then by year 4, you're gonna have like a wake-up call of like, what am I doing with my life? I started and embarked on this journey because I wanted freedom. I wanted to be in a job that I love, and I'm just sucked dry to the bone and I'm barely making it. I would be better off at the job that I hated to leave to do this. And then you're gonna go back to that job. Not a good place to be. Or you're going to just have a wake-up call at that point and then try to implement these guidelines while you're working a part-time job somewhere else trying to get these things in place. Either way you look at it, it's not good. Or you're going to utilize these guidelines and you're going to, in 1 to 2 years, as you put these things in place, you're going to be doing purposeful work that you're passionate about. You're going to be able to transition to full-time, and you're not going to be encumbered by all these other things. And you're going to be able to have a business that brings you joy, that you're excited about, and that you can actually be proud to tell others about. And let me kind of lay this out time-wise for you, because my personality, when I hear wait, it's like the worst thing for me to hear because I want to get things done now. But I can guarantee you that waiting now is actually going to result in a quicker process to get to your goal. And this is how it plays out. Because if you just jump full in, disregard all this, you're gonna be 3 to 4 years of floundering, and then you're gonna have a wake-up call. And if you decide at that wake-up call that you're gonna do the right things, you're gonna have 1 to 2 years after that of just trying to kind of redo your foundation. And then you're looking at 6 years before you can actually have a business that you're so pumped about. Or you wait now, put on the brakes now, and then in 1 to 2 years, you're where you would be in 6 years if you had disregarded things. So it's faster actually to wait. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but it is. So guys, these are the guidelines from going from part-time to full-time. And what I want to see so many wedding filmmakers just crushing it with the right business knowledge and just taking over this industry in a productive way where we're serving couples that we're passionate about. Okay guys, and I also have one really cool thing. So I wrote an ebook, it's free, for how to raise your prices. And this is fantastic if you're part-time or full-time. It shows you how to raise your prices without losing a mass amount of inquiries or bookings or anything like that. It's the same system that I use to raise my prices throughout the years. It's really, really simple and it works like gangbusters. So it's gonna come up right here, it's free, make sure to grab it. And yeah, that's it guys for today. And if you guys have any tips for when you transition to part-time to full-time, I'd love to hear those in the comments. Or just any questions that you have about making that transition, write it in the comments and I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.